It is finally our turn to get our first look at the Tesla Model Y refresh right here. I'm at the Tampa location in, I think it's the International Mall. It's right by the airport in Tampa. But this just showed up today. And thanks to friends, give me a tip that it was here. Here we are. We're one of the first to be able to see it in person. Pretty awesome. I actually talked to one of the guys here about this car. He got to drive it, and his comments were very much like the experience getting the refresh Model 3, a lot quieter, a lot smoother, those types of things, and it drives really nice, which is all to be expected. Now, interestingly, he said it doesn't have full self-driving on it, and I was looking at the menu, and that's all turned off. I think what's happening is Tesla is creating these demonstration models and deploying them across the US, which is what they kind of did with Model 3 when it launched, and they're doing that with Model Y. So these, I want to preface this by saying these cars, they don't appear to be cars that are going to be sold. So there are some fit and finish things. I'm not going to dive too much into that because it's irrelevant. These are not going to be sold. These were built to be able to showcase in stores across the US. So that's what we have here. So excited to bring you today's video because I've been dying to see this thing in person. We have had a Model Y since 2020 when they first came out. We got our first Model Y in April of 2020. It was one of the very first Model Ys that came out. So we've had that one. We've had our 2021 for 3 years, 4 years. We just sold it. So we've been in the Model Y life for a long time for a very good reason. #1 selling car in the world twice in a row now, apparently, for very good reasons. Great size car, great range, great price. All those things come together for an absolute beast of a car to consider. Did Tesla take the existing formula, shake it up a bit, and bring you the next generation of the most successful, best-selling car in the world? I think yes, and we're going to dive into that today because not enough of this has changed that it's going to change the DNA of the car, but enough of it has changed to add the features that you definitely want in your Model Y that you don't have today. Also, brought a handy dandy tape measure because there's a couple things I wanted to see ahead of time that I want to measure and compare that to our previous Model Y, or I guess our new Model Y, our 2025 Model Y that we have at home, give you an idea of what that difference is compared to what you might have today. A lot of video has been brought out since this thing came out, and it's pretty obvious, but I just want to reiterate the fact that what you're looking at from right here and forward is all new. What you're looking at from here all the way to the entire fender here is what we have today, minus this little update to the mirror. Middle exterior of this car is exactly the same shape, same size, all of that. And then of course, the back end is completely refreshed. It looks amazing. And I'm glad that they ended up getting a red one here because I was torn on getting red because I thought contrast was an issue, but we'll dive into that more a little bit later. But one of the things I'm most excited to test out, at least for size, does the existing roof rack fit? So here you can see this is where you're gonna put roof rack arms, and there's one here. Let's see if we can find the other one up front. It is right here. So I'm gonna measure this because I think based on how this thing is shaped, I think the top is actually the same as the existing Model Y, meaning things like the roof rack that you might have for your quote legacy Model Y might actually fit on here. And I think there's some consensus at the store that that might be the case. We'll check that out because if you have a roof rack, that's gonna be kind of a big deal. Taking a look at the front of this car, no surprises here. You already know this light bar. It's pretty awesome. And when the lights are out, this looks even better. There is one thing I wish they would have done, and this is one of my gripes on the new direction that Tesla is going on the front end of these cars. It's not the light bar. Light bar looks amazing. It is these headlights, and the reason is instead of giving you a traditional headlight up here and a fog light down here, if they split it in the middle, they can give you just one light. I'm not saying that's exactly what's happening here, but it sure feels that way. And the reason, if you look at the Cybertruck, that is what we have. We have this super bright light down here, and people think my brights are on all the time. So it actually blinds people. So rather than having a headlight up here, fog light down here, got it right in the middle. That is the same case over here. And before you say it's not possible, Cybercab has the light bar, and on the end, this is where the headlight is, and it beams out really nicely. I really wish that would have found its way into the refresh Model Y, but efficiency is kind of important in building these things, making them cost competitive, all that. A recurring theme you're gonna see, if you look at the trim here on the bottom, try my best to show you, but you can see it actually extends beyond the painted surface. And a lot of talk has been brought up about repairability of the Model Y. And there's a lot of things that they've changed on this car that would suggest repairability was a high priority on the Model Y. That should translate to better insurance rates in the future, but who knows if that'll actually be the case. But if we have all these plastic parts that are protruding slightly beyond painted surfaces, that's going to get damaged first. It doesn't mean this won't, but this is going to take the brunt of any of the impacts that it might have. A little bit closer look on the headlight itself. This is actually your turn signal indicator here. It's nicely tucked in that light bar, and I think it looks pretty good. It's hidden when not in use, and it doesn't have like this yellow dyed look to it, so it maintains this bright white look of the light bar in the front. Love it, love it, love it. Quite possibly the most obvious thing outside of the lights themselves is this squared off look on the front, and I'll pop this in a moment, but this is a very different look than what we have on the existing Model Y. This is actually also repeated in the back of the Model Y, which we'll get to later. This new squared off look, I'm assuming, makes this cheaper to manufacture. So rather than having this swooping rounding piece here and then a bumper that has to touch, we can break it up now with this light bar, bring the panel straight to the light bar rather than rounding it out. And this definitely gives it a more aggressive look. And for those of you who aren't so sure about this light bar in the middle, I have seen pictures of people who have kind of mocked up a black vinyl to go over this middle piece. And then all you have is this, and it's super aggressive. So that might be an option for you if that's something you're interested in. Let's pop the hood. Nothing different about the way that the screen works, which is great. You don't have to relearn the interior, the buttons, all that stuff. Let's head up to the front. All right, just like the existing Model Y, we don't have like a trigger up here. Of course, you can pop this from the app, but no button to open it remotely. What we look at here, there's a couple things I want to point out. Number one, obviously we have the washer nozzle right here, all the way in the front, no longer tucked away back here, easier to refill. The shape of this tub is interesting because from basically this part down is almost exactly the same as the existing Model Y. It gets a little bit different on this top half. Size-wise, it's about the same, but this front lip is much more shallow than it is on the Model Y, I think, and that's why I brought a tape measure for things like that, so I can actually measure it myself. But they did add, of course, the drain plug here, and when I opened this earlier, it was completely wonky and offset. So I think this is going to be kind of one of those things that's a little bit tricky to get in right for some people, but it is nice that it is an option. And actually, if you look underneath that, you can see it feeds through a channel here that's going to drain underneath the car, which is nice. All right, so at the widest point, we are looking at about 36 inches. At the narrow point here at the front, cutting down to about 31 inches. And then that front to back, about 17 inches or so. And that is the same on both sides, of course. Now the front depth, it is 12 inches exactly. The rear depth is 15.5 inches. The interior floor, we're talking 27.5. About 24. And the deepest, it's tough to get this just right, but about 13 inches is what I'm seeing here. And actually, while I'm measuring this, I'm actually noticing something that might show a cool feature in the future. You see, we have a couple of slits in here, and these could be absolutely nothing. However, they line up really nice with these channels. I bet we're gonna have a couple of slots here where you can choose from to put a wall right here to help organize your frunk. So even if Tesla's not offering it, that will definitely find its way in the aftermarket. Pretty cool. It's on both sides, giving you more flexibility on how to use your frunk. Next up is the struts for the actual hood. I was trying to look, it's just too dark to be able to tell. You can hear the struts in there, but they are now packed in underneath this area rather than being exposed. And unfortunately, it is not a powered hood. So being able to add power to this is probably going to be a little bit more complicated than the way it's done today. I could be wrong though. Once you remove this piece here, it could be much easier access. We'll just have to wait and see, but that is one of the things that'll be top on my list, is adding power to this, because it just makes it more convenient, and I use the front all the time because I have power. Okay, I actually re-popped the hood because this latch actually, even the latch itself, is a lot easier and smoother than what's on the existing Y. Something super minor, probably doesn't matter to 90% of you, but that's got a nice soft latch to it. Heading down here, this is where we see the front camera, which people have been talking about since the launch of the refresh Model 3, and you can see there is a spray nozzle up there. I don't know if you can see it, but it's right here. Spray nozzle to keep that camera clean if needed. Of course, we have it on the Cybertruck. I almost never use it, so take that for what it's worth. We have the new refresh Model Y wheels here. These are the aero covers. So these are the 19-inch option. The 20-inch option is a little bit different. I'll put that on the screen right here. And then everything else, minus this mirror, which has been enhanced for airflow, is the same on the exterior. Same handles, same shape of these doors even as far as the cut in here on the trim, exactly the same as what we have in the existing Model Y. The rocker panel on the bottom, same. For the rear of the vehicle, this entire fender appears to be exactly the same, but this is where things start to change. It's the lift gate and this rear bumper. So we can see a nice indicator light here on the side, better for visibility. And when we open the charge port, super fast operation, super smooth, a lot quicker. So it's even got a lot more pressure pushing back for closing it manually like that. So, but yeah, that's a upgraded, changed, revised motor on that door. But I want to leave it open for a second because when I open, since the tail light doesn't sit here anymore, it's all right there. Now, before we get too excited about this light bar here, the glow, which looks amazing in person, by the way. There's a quick look at the tail lights, but I wanted to point out this part of what used to be the rear bumper. This is almost the same as what we have in the existing Model Y. This would have gone down a little bit further on this side, and then of course carried its way all the way over. Instead, we now have plastic all the way here, all the way up, and a huge diffuser on the back. And you'll also notice, just like the front, it actually sticks out quite a bit. I don't know how much of this is for repairability for crashes as opposed to just protecting the car's paint from all the stuff you're going to throw in and out of the back of this car. Probably a combination of both, but a huge diffuser back here. So any rear end impact, this is going to be the first thing that goes, and hopefully, if you're lucky, it'll stop there and not make its way up. However, if it does make its way up, you can see we now have a 3-piece design on the lift, actually 4-piece, sorry. We have this big piece here, we have this big piece here, and then we have both of the arms are separate, just like this. On the passenger side, we have the same indicator light, and of course, the Launch Series badging here. And then this material right here, we'll show you this a little bit better look at what this material looks like on the inside, because this is repeated on the inside. Of course, the Tesla logo spelled out here, and then all broken up by this big tail light. This whole section of this black tail light does nothing. So again, repairability, and even the button for lifting the tailgate right here, and the camera housing itself is separate from these big pieces, these big one-piece taillights. So you can kind of get a sense for the glow. I don't even think you can see the light itself, kind of tucked away in here. but it makes a really awesome glow all the way across the back. So back on the topic of the square hood, looking at the rear glass here, it is also squared off. So this is what I was talking about earlier about having this squared off design. It does follow its way to the back, breaking up all the roundness, which I think is one of the design cues we see on the Model Y that's different than what we have today. Everything is round, everything is curved on the existing Model Y. Although yes, there are a lot of curves, a lot of natural lines. There's a lot more straight lines cutting up that existing same old rounded design. Even as far as this here, this is an important thing right here. I'll show you why right now. So let's open the tailgate here. This is all the same buttons here. This is all carpet now instead of a big piece of plastic that gets scratched up pretty bad. Also don't have any speaker grills on here, which is interesting. But this opening is another thing I'm interested to measure, because this used to be a much more dramatic slope in here, and it looks like it comes farther straight down before it cuts in with just the slightest angle here on the edge. So we're gonna measure this here in just a moment. Looking at the rest of the trunk, pretty much the same on the bottom half. We have, of course, the lip for the tray, and this is now, instead of plastic, this is actually like a felt type material. I bet that's gonna really help with sound deadening. Of course, the two buttons here, which control the seats moving forward and back for folding, which is great. Super convenient to do that. Of course, the front seats do scoot forward to make room for the headrest, which you probably already know, but very similar final, I guess, contour for the rear is what we have on the existing Model Y, and that is because the bench seat can't go anywhere the way that these fold. So this does go straight and then a slight uptick, just like the existing Model Y. These pockets here on the side do seem to be a bit larger than they are in the existing Model Y, and it's kind of like there's this lip here, so they've used every bit of space they possibly can to make this side pocket even bigger, and I bet on paper that translates to more cargo space in cubic feet, liters, whatever they're measuring it to. And then of course we have our 12 volt back here. Let's see, just a standard 12 volt, just like that. We have, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but the access panel for the emergency release on your charge port door in case, or the charge port lock, I should say, in case it gets stuck. So still have access there. I can actually kind of feel it dangling there. Let's see if I can show it to you. It's probably black, yeah. I don't know if you can see that or not, but that's the emergency release for the charging latch. So as you can see, instead of having that painted surface all the way here, all the way to the back, we now have this one-piece humongous diffuser. Instead, of course, the rubber gasket here. Now, in the traditional design, this rubber gasket, the bumper itself actually comes out about here on the same plane. That's that painted surface. So I don't know if we ended up getting more cargo space. We will measure that here in a moment. But this piece here is also now carpet instead of plastic. So they've removed a lot of the plastic, this kind of plastic that does get scratched up, whatever, it's normal. It's an SUV, it's the rear. But the space back here, basically the same as what we have today. It looks and appears to be the exact same sub trunk. That said, these side openings here seem to be quite a bit more dramatic, a lot bigger opening here. And that's gonna be nice for a couple of reasons, but of course, anything that needs to droop over into here. But if you put like a cooler back here, a powered cooler, utilizing this 12 volt, it seems like they have considered that, because this allows for airflow, whereas on the existing one, you really need to prop this door up so that you can properly cool the compressor on a powered cooler. We still, of course, have the same old sub trunk here. The smaller forward one looks to be about the same. It's actually maybe slightly deeper here on that front half. Now the top half of the inside of the liftgate here Looks about exactly the same, almost exactly the same. Just instead of plastic, it's now this, it's covered with this kind of vinyl material, almost like carpet, not really. I don't know. That's got to be good though for sound deadening. And very plain here, where we used to have like speaker grills and things like that. Button in the same spot, except surrounded by carpet instead of plastic. Interestingly, that carpet is everywhere right here. So let's bring these seats up by the press of a button, which is pretty nice. And let's measure this space. I don't know if you can see those seats, but they're kind of moving around as they fold up. So it's got a little bit of play in it to make room for clearance, which is pretty cool. But this should be the standard upright position in the back. You can see here on the side maybe that there's additional room, and it's because we can fold more, but we have to do that from the actual seat side. So we'll do that here in a moment. First, let's take some measurements. All right, so from the very back of the middle seat to the very edge of where this carpet ends, which would be plastic trim on the Legacy Model Y, we've got about 46.25 inch, 47 inches to the middle of this gasket. And on the shorter side, again, going all the way to the back as straight as possible here, we've got about 44 inches to the edge there, 45 to the middle of the gasket. While we are here, 37.5 wide between the wheel wells. And that would be replicated here, obviously, on this piece as well. Again, 37.5. Now this is gonna be interesting. Let's set this tape measure up. See what end to end with these side compartments looks like. Something like all the way across, something like 61.5 inches. So we'll compare that to what the existing Model Y looks like. Now for the depth of these side pockets, this side feels very similar to what we have today. It's probably gonna be about 11.25 inches deep, but the longest piece of this, where we can go all the way to the edge, is about 12.75 inches from here to the longest point, which is pretty nice. Just checking over here on the other side, very similar. However, if you notice the step down, I don't know if you can see this very well, but this shape where we've got the step down that goes even farther, that is not replicated on this side. So this side was unable to cut in quite as drastically as it is on the other side. So really it's about 11 inches here. It does, however, down here cut in a little bit, probably about the same depth. So they maximize space, which is great. And then depth, once again, looking at about 11 inches or so. About 11 inches, yeah, so slightly different on that side. Not expecting anything exciting or different here, but we're looking at about 31 inches, about 30.5 inches, about 14 inches to this lip. I don't know, 16 or so inches deep on this side. So pretty good depth. And that bottom width at the very bottom here, about 2 foot on the narrow side and about 2 foot. So actually it's more square than I realized. About 2 foot by 2 foot, and front to back about 13.5 inches. It's pretty rounded. At the fattest point, about 16 inches. Only because it seems a little bit deeper. I'm gonna go ahead and measure. We're talking 32.5 inches wide on the inside here. The longest part, about 37.5 for depth. At the deepest point, it's about 5 inches. And at the shallow end, it is 3.5 inches. Front to back on this, since it now has a lip, I don't know if you saw that, but we now have a lip separating it, is about 18 inches. The lip is practical because it stops these things from sliding into the main compartment. This is actually a nice place to store things like accessory bags, maybe extra charging equipment, things that you don't need often. but still have a good place for it. Right at the ground level, we are talking 37.5 inches. Again, I really think because of this shape. Now let's look at the peak of right where this transition happens from right there, 43 inches. So let's see how that compares. The struts that operate the liftgate appear to be the same, and basically the same hinges on the front as well. So of course we still have the button here on the bottom to close this thing. Kind of give you an idea of what we're looking at. All right, let's keep making our way around. Oh, one more thing before we do make our way around. So we have our indicator lights that light up when you open the lift gate. So of course, with a one-piece tail light, we can't get a light to light up here because the light's not there anymore. So this is where they have chosen to place those indicator lights for when you're pulled over and opening this lift gate. All right, let's get inside the vehicle here. There's one thing I do not like about the white interior, and it is this lighter material. It just feels cheap, it looks cheap. On the black interior, this is that fake suede, I guess, and I think that looks much better. Of course, having a little bit of contrast helps with the design, so I get it, but I would have much rather have had like a, I don't know, a suede of some kind right here. We do have the light bar here, and it does not extend all the way to the edge. Has a nice clean ending here. The all of this looks and feels exactly the same as what's in the car today. This is where things get a little bit different. This is not just plastic. I don't know if you can see that or not, but I can kind of push in a little bit. It's like a padded material. It's not real leather, it's kind of a fake leather, but it's much more padded. That's gotta help with sound deadening. And then of course, I'm a huge fan of this carpeted material on the inside instead of just plastic rattling around. And it looks like we might have better, easier access to the rear emergency latch, although I can't get that open. Might be pretty difficult to get that open. Oh, there's the hole, it's on this side. Okay, let's see if you can see that. There you go. Pull that up. There's your emergency latch. Could not be easier. That's a much better setup than what's in the car today, in my opinion. That'll be a lot easier to get to and to utilize in case of an emergency. So nice job on that one. Nice size speaker right here. And then on the side, I think we're gonna see some updates to these buttons, and here is why. To recline this thing, we have to press this button here, and you can press and hold, you can just tap. It is a double press though, like you can feel a light press, and then you can press even farther. So there's 2 steps in there, which is helpful, but it's so tiny in a difference. When you're folded down, I think that this is gonna be kind of annoying, but I could be wrong, because when we go to try to remove some of the recline, we gotta just gently press. Otherwise, it'll go all the way. Let's see, there's the fully forward position. And if we just lightly press, nothing else will happen. If you press enough for double, that's when the whole action happens with the front seat folding forward, or scooting forward, excuse me, while this thing makes clearance. I'm not crazy about that. But I do like the ability to just kind of tap and get whatever amount you want. But I think that's gonna be really annoying to adjust. I'm sure there's a sensor when you're sitting on there, it won't fold, but I don't know if it's a different button or if it's just software that you have to hold it for a couple of seconds for it to completely fold. I think that's the way to do that, personally. Here we have carpet instead of plastic again, and nice bolstered material here. This is the same leather that we have in the refreshed Model 3, and it is very soft. It's very nice, soft compared to the existing Model Y. Great job. It is not actually ventilated in the back, but we do have the breathing holes to match the front, which we will get to all the way in the middle. That should help with keeping the seats more comfortable. Not crazy about this. I think the Rivian has this too. It just, I don't know. I'm not crazy about it. It's just, it's kind of cheapish, but the material on the back, it's not It's not the same as like this material, but it is a little bit different than the plastic that's on there today. Almost padded. So it's a different, it's almost like there's a, maybe a vinyl applied to the outside of the plastic. Perhaps that's what it is. We have that same material that's on the door right here. Again, I like that. And the headliner is not as stiff. This is kind of padded also. Looks the same as what you have in your car, but this is padded. So nice job there. Let's go ahead and take a seat in here. First, exact same fold down here. Got the headliner, of course, or the headrest, excuse me. And then the button is super far back there, but it does work. It's a little bit deeper down there, it felt like. So yeah, let's have a seat. We have the screen down here, and for those of you who complain that it's too low and the vision is not that great, sure, if you're sitting back here, but when your 6 and 8-year-old is sitting back here, this is amazing. This is the best thing they added to Teslas. This is how you keep mom and dad happy in the front and the boys happy in the back, the girls, boys and girls, whatever. We also have the absence of the manual setting for the air. So when we turn it on, just like in the Cybertruck, this moves around, which is pretty nice, only because we can also control it on the screen up here, which I'll show you later. Of course, you can play games back here, which the boys sometimes do, but big thing is you can access all of these. And if you go to, I think, disneyplus.com, it'll then add that app here to show up, which we still use. So important for us. 2 USB-Cs here. I don't see any additional ones added, which is unfortunate. I was hoping to get a couple more USB-Cs, but those are not here. Size-wise, we'll do some measurements, but it feels the same. And I'm at the forward-most setting for my back. Decent room. This front seat seems like it's kind of pushed back a bit, so I'll mess with those here in a bit and then sit over there to show you legroom. But legroom is really good. And let me recline here, and when you're fully reclined, this is very, very comfortable back here. So back seat, pretty awesome. Of course, the amazing sunroof up here. There are some changes to the sunroof. They've actually added a coating to it that rejects almost all the possible heat that can come in, which is huge. I do not know if that's also extended to the back, and if it is, if you get the 3rd row, that is a must because it gets very hot back there. We also don't know if vents have been added for a 3rd row option. If there's a 3rd row and you don't have vents, it's going to be very miserable back there for climate control. What we do is we have to fold this seat down just to help with airflow getting back there. Hopefully we get a vent, but even if not, we definitely need that same coating on this window here. So hopefully that's there. I don't know one way or the other. Let's see if I can do this without it falling. I just want to see what that narrow spot is. Looks like 51 inches. So we'll see how that compares. The front of the door to the front of the door is something like 55 inches. And then, of course, like I said, the middle is all the same. Even this pillar, it's probably exactly the same as what's on the Model Y. All right, let's head up to the front seat here. Again, we see those same nice additions here on the front. This more padded material all the way down, even down here. And similar shape grill for the front speaker, so still a massive speaker here, which is great. And fabric material in here. Our light bar that goes to about 2/3 of the way back on the door. And if you get the Launch Series, a pretty cool logo light up right there. On the side, of course, because not enough people were pressing the lumbar support button on the passenger side, that's still not here, unfortunately, but this is that same kind of softer plastic material. It's not padded, but maybe like it's hard to explain. You'll just have to feel it, but it's a nicer feel than traditional plastic that we have in even today's Teslas. Buttons are about the same. We've got the same movements, and the seat riser will measure on the driver's side, but I can't tell if it's higher or lower. We'll take a look at that. That's an important piece because I want to know the seat height for some of you who have trouble getting in and out of lower set cars. Of course, the Y is higher than the 3 and is a good size, but pretty much the same. Everything else right here, I'm not seeing anything that's out of the ordinary. All right, headed over to the driver's side. Same comments as the passenger side, exact same switches, knobs, all that stuff as we have today. The additional speaker here, actually pretty good size. I can't think off the top of my head. I don't think it stretches this far back, but I'll have to take a look and prove that one way or the other. Again, this material that I'm not crazy about, that because in the black we get that kind of suede material, I think is a nicer look, but whatever. The whole dashboard is that nice thick padding. Going to be great for sound insulation. Even down here, this is a bit padded as well. And the buttons here, we still have lumbar. So once a week, make sure you press this so that we don't lose that in the future. The material in the seats is fantastic. It is ventilated seats on the front. And so these bubbles here that they have in here, this ventilation actually functions. And I can actually feel air even up here blowing into the back, which is nice. Heading in here, our air controls here, exactly what you expect. Same setup as we have today. Turn that down to the right temp. There we go. And controlling the rear, you can do from here, so we can move their air around, turn it on, turn it off, all that stuff. But the rear only has heated, and it's only on the left and right, not the middle. So that is one more thing that they've pulled out of this. But on the front, of course, we have heated and cooled on both sides. So whichever you prefer, depending on, I guess, the temperature where you're at. The steering wheel is interesting because it's not something I thought was different, but it is. We have a much more ergodynamic design, I guess. Feels sturdy, thick, a very comfortable steering wheel. Nothing crazy either, like a different variant of a Squircle. I would say it's completely round to right here and slightly straight. And that is great because that is for clearance of getting in and out, but without disrupting the entire aesthetic or feel of the steering wheel. So big fan of this steering wheel. We don't have turn signals here anymore. So for those of you who cannot live without a turn signal stock, here it is. It is definitely here. And I think personally, this is a good move for Tesla because this is one area that some people just cannot get their heads around. So they refuse to consider a Tesla without this turn signal stock. Now, it does not have like a bump. It's just, that's it. It feels nice and sturdy, nice rebound on it. So yeah, I think that's perfect. That's exactly what they needed. I think it's a lot easier for people to get over the gear shift because now they have turn dials up here instead of a traditional gear shift anyways. On the steering wheel, everything else about what you expect. Some things are moved around. We do have voice control here, which is where it's at today, but now we can, of course, open up the cameras from there. I really like that. I use that on the Cybertruck. I think that's a good move. Our brights now right there, and our wiper controls right here. This is great because half the buttons, and it makes it so much easier to remember where everything is at. Things like the brights, things like the wiper blades, it's all just in one spot. You have two over here, two over here. That's how it should be. And then of course our traditional scroll wheels, which actually interesting, it has a little bit of a bounce to it when you roll up and down, not in a bad way, but interesting. That's been updated just a little bit. You can see that same design that I was talking about on the rear light. So we've got that nice trim here, that same design following its way inside the vehicle. And this is basically the only area you're going to find this brushed aluminum is here in the front of the vehicle. We have it here on the bottom of the steering wheel, tracing around. And then on the launch series, we have the same thing up here, launch. And it does feel like it might actually be metal. If not, it's metallized plastic. So it feels nice to the touch. And then finally right here, we also have that same design here across the front underneath where the air vents are. So nice little touches of this material throughout and nothing obnoxious. I was not a fan of this center console when it first came out because it felt very, very cheap. This feels much better. It doesn't wobble around or anything. It has really nice tension to it. So this feels much, much better than the refresh Model 3 when it originally launched. So that is much better. I was not excited about this until just this moment when I was in it. Cup holder, about what you'd expect. Let me see if we can feel anything down here. We have a 12 volt, so there is a 12 volt all the way at the bottom, which is nice. Would have been nice to be 120, but I don't feel anything forward or anywhere else. It's the same deep pocket that we have in today's Model Y, which is great. And then let's see how these work, if they work well or not. Let's see. Yep, no problem on the left. No problem on the right. So it's funny, these have had to have so many different iterations, and a lot of it's because we all have different phone cases. So some of them work well, some of them don't. But on this car, no problem, left or right, as you would expect. Closing that up, let's take a look at the center console here. It is nice deep pocket. I see one USB-C, just one, right there. It's only one. I don't feel anything else up here. Yeah, about the same size, maybe slightly smaller. This is very thick right here. So I'm not sure what's all housed in here. I guess to hold the lid, this is thick, very thick. And it's gonna be hard to show you, but you lose a lot of this vertical space for your center console because that is a big chunky piece. Interesting. There used to be a deeper pocket here, and there were accessory companies that built a door for it for you to hide stuff. That's not going to be the case here because this is a nice, much thinner, slimmer, sleeker looking armrest here on the side. I do want to see what we have in the glove box. Let's see if it'll let us access it on demo mode like this. Yep, okay. So it's actually magnetic. That's interesting. I don't know if you saw that. So it's magnetic. So it's just releasing that magnet here, and on the other side, huge magnet, big disc with a little bit of padding on it, and you can see the USB for Sentry mode, dash cam, all that right there. That's the only thing that's really in there. So, interesting. Has a loud thud to it because that's a strong magnet. Screen is the same, looks what you'd expect, operates the same, very zippy as you would expect. But like I said, this one doesn't have autopilot, or sorry, full self-driving, which is really weird. But you can see what that looks like without FSD. So I think that these are only for demos in showrooms before the launch. I think that's my guess on what these are going to be used for, and that's why it's missing some features and some of the fit and finish might not be perfect. Moving our way up here, same style rear view mirror. Of course, your camera right here to keep you honest about not using your phone while you're on FSD, at least for now. And nice, not haptic, but just soft touch. This is actually a lot cleaner install than what's on the one today. I think a lot of that's because we have this padding, so we have extra room to kind of like soften up some of the edges. Even the, wow, even the visor here, it's got that thick padded material. Otherwise, exactly the same as what we have today. Very nice. Let's see if, ready? 1, 2, perfect. And it does appear to go all the way to the edge, so very nice. Very important, I should say. And then just a magnet like today. So now that I've got the front seat where I would have it, let's take a look here at that legroom like I promised. Let me just have a seat here. A little bit more legroom. So let me compare this to what we have in ours. Let me recline all the way. Let me get the tape measure out. Let's see how that compares legroom wise. It should be about the same, honestly. Dimensionally, the car is basically the same. I don't know. What do we got? 4 inches, 3 inches, 4 inches, something like that. You tell me. I can't tell from this angle, but probably about 3 inches of clearance here from the front of my kneecap. So we'll compare that to our Model Y at home. Quick look at what all the lights look like in operation. There's hazards, there's brake lights. I don't know if it'll let him put it in reverse, probably not, but those should be way down here. Okay, let's see what our front looks like. Okay, that's what it looks like without the light bar. Turn signal. Get you a close up here real quick, what that looks like. See, it just blends in really nicely, but still very bright yellow. And then our headlights. It won't turn the headlights on? So no headlights. This is what the rear looks like without any lights on. You get a much more clear look at this contrast, at least on the red one. This really stands out a lot. All right, we'll do our best here. Maybe my buddy Drake will give me an assist real quick. Will you hold the tape measure? Because I'm gonna try to get the angle right. All right, all the way down. I'll do my best. So we're looking at probably, how the heck do you get this right? I don't know.
26? 25?
You know, like 26 inches or so. That's very scientific, which is nice. And then all the way up, you can't get a more accurate measurement than what I just did. Okay, now all the way up, talking in a very scientific method, about 29 inches. So the last thing I wanted to see is the seat risers. They look slightly smaller. But no, that's 5 inches. That's probably about what we have today. So still about 5 inches or so. I'll compare that. I think it's 4 to 5 inches. Can't remember which on the existing one. So yeah, just looks maybe a little different. And maybe it's because there's a lack of plastic everywhere and it's throwing off my, my senses. Here's the Launch Series trim here. It does not light up, which I'm surprised, but that is your interior. And then finally, just generally speaking, looking at these seals, very robust, thick seals throughout, and they don't seem wasted. So I think all these things in combination with nice padded materials, this is going to be a very quiet, enjoyable experience on the road for the refreshed Model Y. Here's a look at the dual pane glass here on the front. Very similar to what we have. And then, of course, that has now been extended to the rear windows as well. So hopefully you can see that. So we have dual pane on the rear as well, which is expected, of course. Okay, final thoughts on the refreshed Model Y. Based on what I can show you today, I can't test drive it, of course, but that may be coming here in a couple of weeks. So keep an eye out for that. But this car, there's no question about it. This is a home run. It's taking the existing recipe, adding the things that you miss about it today, and that's it, nothing else. They've done a lot for efficiency, both on repairability and manufacturing, none of which is going to make the ownership experience worse. So I think they did one heck of a job changing this car just enough, but still keeping it affordable, keeping it everything that you need to be number one. A lot of people have complained, why doesn't it have 800-volt architecture? Why doesn't it do all these other things? Why is there not steer-by-wire? This is the #1 selling car in the world of any kind. And to do that, it has to be affordable. It's interesting because this car at one point was twice the price of the #2 selling car in the entire world, which is pretty incredible. Now it's much closer in price because they've done a lot to take out costs. This car has to be affordable. It has to maintain affordability. So what is going to sell this car and what's acceptable, but also affordable? If you want max charging and all that other stuff, go buy a $100,000 car, not a $40,000 car minus tax credit. That's the difference. And I think we got to keep that in mind with the Model Y. I've never been confused about that. I know a lot of people are starting to expect more from EVs, as they should, but make sure we keep a balanced approach on this. I think it's going to be a home run. Right price. Once we get out of Launch Series, I think that pricing is going to be roughly the same. If not, we'll be lucky if it goes down. I don't think so, but I think we're going to have the exact same pricing that we have today. hopefully we get rear wheel drive sooner than later, and they don't wait a whole long time to go from all-wheel drive only to also offering that rear wheel drive. We've also had rumors that the performance version has been spotted with some camouflage on it, so hopefully that's not too far behind. Hopefully we don't have to wait as long as we did with the Model 3 performance. That's going to be obviously a very popular option as well. That's it for us today. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I can't wait to catch you on the next one.